Fabulous. Right, I think we'll get going. I think people can join as we go. Fabulous. Right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight on this webinar. I appreciate you giving your time on this beautiful evening. I'm sure you'd either be rather sat outside enjoying the sunshine or being busy in whatever way you would like. So tonight we're going to cover an element of assurance that has been part of IBOS for quite a little while now. However, becoming more and more important as we move forwards in terms of our assurance processes, and enabling venues to have a means of recording and a development tool in order to make sure their safety systems are up and running. So we'll get going. First off is the couple of introductions, if my computer wants to work. Stand by. Oh, there we go. Hopefully that's working. First off is myself. My name is Tom Webster. I'm the Assistant Head of Inshore Boating. So I'm based down in Weymouth, work underneath the Head of Inshore Boating in the central office, looking after things such as IBOS in particular is my area, but also looking at development training and what have you, where we can support and develop training across the country. Joining me tonight to help is a member of our team, Nicola Drummond, who works in the Inshore office with me. She's going to just sort of be my right-hand person, just collating all any questions and bits and bobs like that. With relation to any questions, we will have a bit of a Q&A session at the end. If you can use the Q&A function, which you should find in the toolbar of your webinar screen, you should find a Q&A. The chat has been disabled, so we can funnel all questions into one place. So if you have any questions throughout, please do pop them in there throughout as we go. And we'll try and address those at the end. We have got a high number of participants tonight. So therefore, if we don't get to answering all those questions, we will publish a questions asked and answers sheet if we can't sort of group them all into the answers we give tonight. So we will do that. The other caveat on that as well is you're always welcome to email myself or the Inshore Boating office and ask any questions, or give us a call or give me a call. And yeah, we can chat things through as and how you need to. So if you could use the Q&A function for any questions, that would be great. Just to sort of bracket on tonight, we've set sort of about 25 minutes to half an hour of chatting away to you, because obviously what we don't want to do is overload or push paperwork for too long. However, you know, we'll allow a bit of time at the end as well for questions. So we're thinking that this will probably take about 45 minutes of your time this evening, and hopefully we won't run too much over that. But I can't express my thanks enough for you giving up your time to sort of take part in this tonight and take on board what we're saying. It is a vital part of what we do. So what we're going to look at this evening. So first off, we're going to have a look at this level 1 self-assurance. What is it? How to do it? The administration aspects of it. Approach to the implementation of it. So how it fits in with the big scheme of things and how we approach doing it. The RAG system, or red, amber, green system, and what that means. Link to higher assurance levels. So there's the 2nd level, 3rd level, 4th level within IBOS. There's many audit processes, external audit processes that we have to go through, and how this links to those elements. And we'll have a bit of a Q&A session at the end. So first off, we're going to have a little look at level 1. What is it? So first off, level 1 assurance, as per IBOS, is venue self-audit. So that means the review of your own documents, such as risk assessments, operational procedures, or site-specific instructions, and how you go about things, lesson plans, way we go about teaching things, the areas we use, the operating area itself, emergency action plans. It's your review of that. The key to level 1 self-assurance is it's documenting that process. It's always been a requirement that happens on an annual basis, a review of accidents or what have you. However, now we have a system of documenting it. Previously, also, we didn't have a system of looking forward and looking for development and opportunity to develop and noting what those development actions are, so we can show progressive action or progressive move towards better quality, better standards, better safety levels, you know, whatever that might be. And that's what venue self-audit is about. This is not something where someone comes in, peers over your shoulder while you're doing it. It is something that is evidence of and will be looked for in other levels of audit or visit process. So it sets out the operational review and development. And this is what's key about it. Can't stress enough, it is review and development. It is not a critique or criticism. It's about looking at what happens and looking at how we can improve it. And that's the nature of water sports as a whole across the industry. Things we do today and how we go about doing things today are not the same as when I first started my career, simply because those methods and systems are now a bit obsolete, and accidents that have arisen because of those designs of boat or that way of delivery, it changes. Best practice develops, and that only happens with people looking at what they do and saying, is this appropriate? Is this the right thing we're doing? Or are we getting the most for our mission, our charitable mission? We're all here because we want to give time to Sea Cadets. And that, whilst that is amazing, it's about making sure that product and that delivery is having that maximum impact. And that's part of what we're doing. It ensures baseline compliance and review requirements. So by that, what we mean is baseline compliance means essentially, number one, IBOS. Are you operating in compliance with IBOS? IBOS is the golden ticket when it comes to Sea Cadet boating as a whole. There are other elements, but most, all baseline requirements are delivered through IBOS, whether that be requirements of TARS, Marine Coast Guard Agency, RYA, British Canoeing, British Rowing. All these things culminate into IBOS, and IBOS is the interpretation of that guidance into one document and how we go about delivery within Sea Cadets. And as such, that forms part of an important part of our national operating standard for Sea Cadets, and therefore our indemnity and what have you. So it's really important that we ensure that our operation is compliant along that. And the review requirements are such that, the famous saying is no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So, as we do stuff with the best intention, we may have written down control measures in a risk assessment, or we may go about doing something that would appear on paper to be absolutely spot on. But in practice, it's either not practical or it happens in a way that actually it doesn't quite do what we thought it would do. So we can review that and change that. And this is part of that process. Provides evidential and a standardized reporting process. So in any industry now, we have to show this review process and do this review process, and actually evidencing that we've done it is really key, but also evidencing the actions we found and the action and putting those into practice and showing the development we have made. So those actions we take, they can be really important in terms of the offering to Sea Cadets. And when we are externally audited or higher level audited from internal side of stuff, such as UMA, things like that, that provides that evidence in a standard way that is very easy across the country to see. It also places assurance within a forward-looking and open framework. The key to that is assurance is quite often viewed, and I must admit, I've been in the seat where I've been being assured, thinking, "Oh Christ, they're just looking for something," or I've got to sing the right tune here to get the right report. Actually, inshore boating, we are not overly interested in that style of assurance. Assurance to us means development, support, and growth. It means making what we do either acknowledging that what's happening is good and spreading good, or looking at what we're doing and looking at giving ideas and giving progression forward to make that a more wholesome offer, a better offer, whatever it may be. And certainly throughout my career, I've always learned that you can always change, improve, and adapt what you're doing for the better. Always. And it's just about different people's ideas, different eyes looking at things, and actually just having a look at what you're doing yourself and saying, is this doing what I want it to do? And that's why it's important to have it as a forward-looking thing. It's not about what's wrong. It's about what we need to do to get it right or better. And doing that in an open way, so that we're saying, look, this is what we were doing. We thought this was right. And it may well have been for 20 odd years. That may have been the right way to do it. But then someone bangs their head or cuts their hand and we think, actually, Yeah, we've had 20 years grace there. So, it's something we can look forward and change that to make it better. And quite importantly, it keeps venues up to date with changing guidance and understanding of risk. So, as you're probably well aware, IBOS has had a couple of releases in the last few years, and we've done everything we can to make that a something changed in the future. So we won't be releasing it as often, and change the system slightly so that we will hold that guidance for longer and use our standards and expectations and safety alerts to update it. And then when we have a lot of those, we'll then release a new document. And that therefore shouldn't be a surprise of what those changes are either. This is just another means of doing that. And we will be looking at the form itself in a short while. But the key to it is it does link all the questions it asks to the specific guidance that we publish for that. And bearing in mind it is our operating standard, the national operating standard, which forms the brackets within which you must operate. That doesn't mean you must do it all. It means that you must be within the guidance at all times. And that's really important. So it's really important that you know what that is. And actually this gives the opportunity where you read a question, well, I didn't see it. Well, actually it prompts us to look at it and check that and make sure that we are working on a par with it all. So moving on slightly, how is it that we self-assure? Okay, and we'll look at the actual paperwork bit in a bit, but how do we go about this? So when do we do it is the first question. Well, it's prior to any systems review. So normally, well, within IBOS, we suggest that systems should be reviewed, or ask that systems are reviewed, being risk assessments, operational procedures, instructor delivery, monitored sessions, making sure instructors are following the operating standards, the local, site specifics and things like that. That's reviewed once a year. Now, it makes sense. I'm not saying there's no rule hard and fast that says you have to do it at a set time of year, but we do need to do it each year. And it makes sense to do that at the end of a boating season, or when you start to slow down your boating season. Because I know some venues have got it linked so they are able to boat all year round. But as we sort of slow down into the winter and the nights draw in, well, this is a good time to review our systems, to look at what's happened, look at any adjustments we've made, or look at actual practice on the water, or and what we're doing, and saying, are we doing it like we wrote down at the beginning of the season, or are we doing it differently? Why are we doing differently? Because it might be good that you're doing it differently, and actually therefore we need to change what we've written and incorporate that into our standard practice. So this is really, really important. So when is once a year we need to do a level 1 assurance check, and technically it should kind of be already happening, but it's something that is now a documented process to provide that additional support and evidence-based development that basically backs up the venue, to show that you are taking a progressive action forwards, should there ever be need for that. Quite simply, it's about answering the questions on the self-assurance form. We've laid it out as best we can to be a Q&A session, so you can ask those questions, and actually what the actions come from them get other detail in terms of what you need to do, because what you need to do will be very different depending on the venue itself. So each venue operates slightly differently, very rightly, because it's in a different place, and it has a different operating area, has different kit, different skill levels of instructors, and different numbers of instructors and different things. So it's important that the actions are relevant to your venue, but the question is generic. Are you compliant with this? If yes, great. Sort of, well, there's an action there to improve it. No, well, there's an action there to bring it in. So it's simply going about answering those questions. This is a big one, and it's about being honest with it. When it comes to assurance, and I hold my hand up high on this one, very high, in that when you are getting assured and you answer the questions, you want to put yourself across in the best way possible. Actually, and it takes time to be comfortable with this. It's about being honest with where things are at. It is what it is. It doesn't matter that it is what it is. What matters is that we are looking forward and how we improve it and how we take it forward. So if there are things that we need to take action on, well, we do need to take action on that, because otherwise we're not compliant with our indemnity, our insurance. We are not we're not delivering within the letter of the law. So it's if IBOS is wrong, then that's on the charity. If your venue site specifics is wrong and not compliant, then that's on the unit. and that is kind of how it works across the board. So we need to make sure that we are compliant. So being honest on this form is vital to ensure that we can demonstrate actions taken towards compliance. What that actual action will be completely venue specific. So where there are actions for development, we note them in the actions. It's not about going, oh, we'll just do this quick. Note what it is that you've done, or what it is you need to do, and therefore write down what it is you've done. And that is part of that evidential process of showing our compliance and our actions to conform. So how to self-assure? Well, competency is important. So competency of persons undertaking the assurance. So in IBOS, essentially those looking at that focusing within boating, and this is a boating element, but in IBOS we have specific qualifications that are permitted to do the official checks, the annual checks on equipment. And I'd suggest that if you're reviewing your documentation, those are as a minimum the qualification set you want looking at your boating documents to look at compliance. That person also needs to be a competent instructor or senior instructor or coach, or they need to be. It's important they need to be competent and experienced enough to be able to understand what those risks are. Simply by holding an instructor ticket, that does not make you competent and aware of the wider world and the wider hazards within water sports. Where we don't have that in place, where we do have support networks via district, area, and inshore boating that can support that. And if you do find yourself in that situation, well, call me. I'd be very happy to help. Very, very happy to help you. But likewise, you have got local networks as well, should you require them. Plus our boat station teams dotted around the country, they are all subject matter experts and very, very highly qualified personnel. So they are also in a very good place to help. They need to be competent to understand the hazards and understand the requirements of those of control measures and operational procedures and why we go about doing what we do. We need to have an awareness of IBOS. So if we're not aware of IBOS, if we are in unit commands or we are in the UMT as people responsible for the welfare and the delivery within a unit, we do need to be aware of IBOS. There should be, whilst it's not perhaps part of your daily delivery if you're not part of the boating picture, it is quite important that you understand what IBOS is, understand roughly what's in it, and what its intentions are in its basic format. If you do need help with that, again, we're here to help. You review all elements as guided by the report sheet. It's as simple as that. You go through, answer the questions, place it, and we'll show you how to do that. And it will give you it will therefore tell you whether you've got actions or not. Detail. Is it correct or not? So one big area, and the reason I've used Westminster Assets in this, is when we review our documents and our policies and things like that, quite often we'll look at risk assessments, we'll look at our site-specific instructions, we'll look at our instructor competencies and whether they're delivering within it and if that's being recorded correctly and what have you. We'll look at our daily logs to make sure that's recorded correctly. Quite often the bit that gets missed is actually the equipment itself. So we'll check that it's all right, but is it the same as the one that's listed on your Westminster Assets? Because if it isn't listed on your Westminster Assets, you're not insured to use it. It doesn't fall under the indemnity, so that craft does not carry the liability you require to use it. So it needs to be correctly listed on Westminster. Where that's not the case, most of that is changeable at unit level, and a case of just a bit of editing is required. But likewise, if you can't do that, again, Inshore Boating are here to help. We can help with it, particularly with the mod craft and things like that. We will be able to do that for you. So you just need to drop us a line and we will help get that sorted for you. And this is part of the pickup where people have had trouble with stores and things like that, particularly with their boating kit, where they've had stuff listed on their equipment list and they've they've had their stores account stopped because they've still got this asset and they can't account for it. Well, what we're trying to do here is suggest that actually through this means we can actually help you nip that in the bud and deal with things before that becomes a problem. And if we're doing this on an annual basis, we should pick that up really quickly. Approach with a fresh look. Okay, it's not a test, like we said before. It's about looking at things with a fresh pair of eyes, sitting back and going, is our stuff right? Is it where it needs to be? Do we need to change anything? It's about thinking forward, not about guarding what we've got. If what we've got is good, then absolutely it's about carrying the good forward. If there's elements we can improve or need to change or have modified as we've moved on since our last iteration of our documentation, then it's really important that we adjust forwards and include that. So practice on the water should be the same as detailed in the documentation, and the assets we have should marry up to what we've got in Westminster. Okay, Inshore IBOS compliance. Now we keep saying IBOS, but IBOS is our operating standard. If we are operating within IBOS, then we've got everything as IBOS says it needs to be, then absolutely everything's going right. We can always improve and always change and always adapt and always, make things different and more interesting. But as a compliance, the IBOS is it. That is where we need to be. We do have external elements outside of that, such as the RYA, which have in some areas, slightly higher requirements. IBOS is slightly higher in others. But if we're an RYA centre, then we obviously need to meet those as well. So it assures you to IBOS, but it's also an opportunity to assure against any external accreditations that your venue may carry. So we've kind of said this, but where there's good, keep it. Where there's development needed, state it and action it. It's simple as that. It's not a tick box exercise either. It's not just a case of getting the form done. It's about this is a process that we're documenting, not a documentation of just a process of documentation. It's the wider process that we're interested in with a level 1 check. Report findings. Yeah, simple. Write it down. If it needs changing, write it down. Write down what you've done to change it, and log it. And that shows. And in all honesty, if that's what you're doing, you are showing exemplar level of review. So I'm just going to change my screen very quickly. So please bear with me here. Just need to pop up another screen. So hopefully we can do this. Share screen. So I'm hoping there you can see a Word document. Can you see that, Nicola? Yeah, fab. So this here is the level 1 sheet itself. This is the report sheet, and this is available on the TNA website. Okay, it's under IBOS component or operating standard components. So if you go into Inshore Learning, Inshore Boating, operating standard components, you'll find this in that tab. Okay, and this is the report sheet that we need to undertake and record. So just to take us through that, it will give us a little bit of an insight into what this is and how basically simple it is to do. Hopefully, most of the work is done for you on this. It's just about what needs to be reported on. So we have got, if I can make this work. So we have got, first off, venue information. So what we need to do is tie this to the venue. So if you are a venue, for example, that boats at a hub, it is the owner of the IBOS document this needs to do this. It is not the venue that signs up and says we've got, or the establishment that signs up and says we're going to operate by this. That's fine. It's the venue that owns that IBOS document that needs to undertake this. So it would be the hub itself would need to review that document. Although what they may do is seek assistance on that from their member units to make sure that get the feedback from them and actually say, look, we've got these actions, we need to do this, or what are your thoughts on this, and what have you. That's a really good collaborative approach. So we've got our documentation of our venue, our boating area. So where is it we are boating in the operating area? Is that the authorized one? Is it as per your authorization on your NAO? It's really important that that's the case. If it's normal operations, there it should be under an NAO. So making sure that that's in place, and looking at the activities that are offered. So offered at the venue, sailing, windsurfing. These are the unit level activities. We haven't got keelboating on there for the specific reason that the boat stations kind of run that program. So this is kind of based around, this is 4 units. although boat stations do have to do this as well. Is it offered at the venue? Yes, no, comments. So for example, yes, but we haven't had any instructors for 6 months. So instructors growing, hoping to bring it back, or and that's a really good thing to be noting, saying, look, this is where we're at. We are doing it, or we're about to start. We're looking at starting it within the next 6 months. Whatever that might be. We go down a little further and we look around the audit key here. What we've got is our RAG system. We said we're going to talk about our RAG system, our red, amber, green. Okay. And the first element, having said it's not a tick box exercise, you can all wrap my knuckles for this, because the first bit of the task is to tick some boxes. Okay. And it's the red, amber, green. You've got red, amber, green ticks. Okay. Green means it's as per our documentation and it is delivering as we require, is compliant with the requirements of the operating standard. Therefore, no action is required. So green is golden, crack on. Amber is for potential minor infringements. So if we're not compliant, but it's safe, and this is the big thing, it is safe. Amber means we can have a bit of time to get stuff done. So action required within 3 months or date set. So that could be a slight extension to that because someone's away for a while, or we need that person to do that, or it's going to take time to bring stuff in to do that, and we require a certain amount of time to organize. That's okay. Okay. So amber is kind of the minor infringements to deal with. Red, however, is immediate action required. And this is where any level of safety is infringed. So if you take that as a golden rule, if safety is infringed or documentation of safety, so if you are not compliant with our requirements for indemnity, then that is not deemed safe because you are not operating within the operational framework. So therefore, action is immediate required. Therefore, activity should cease that activity, not all activity necessarily, but certainly that element of activity should cease until such time as there is compliance in. And we've got the actions that we know are undertaken. And that's for us to say, look, we've caught ourselves on this one. Brilliant. We've got that in. We stopped. We did it. We go again. And that's absolute. People think that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's a really, really good thing to be spotting. And if people can find themselves non-compliant and have to tick a red box, and they do something about it, that is brilliant. Sweeping under the carpet and going, oh, that looks bad. It doesn't look bad. But that's where accidents happen and things go wrong. So that gives you a sort of insight into the audit key. So what we've done is split the sheet into key areas. So the first key area, if we let's hop onto the sort of second page there, we've got IBOS administration. Okay, and we've got a few elements there covering what's within what we should have in terms of our paperwork, and what that paperwork should be doing. What the purpose of that paperwork is, and that's sort of covered up and down on that screen there. Going a bit further down, you'll notice it goes a bit further on. Equipment. So actually, is it the right equipment? Is it kept well? Is it damaged, or are we using damaged kit? Are we reporting incidents? Are we do we have a safe maintenance system in place? What have you? So it's the equipment side. Is it listed right on Westminster? Is it right, and is it compliant? And that's, if you answer those questions there, it will be able to tell you exactly that. And then we move on to safety. So this is the safety cover of activities and the safety elements of activities. And that sort of runs on to over 2 pages there. We have our program. So are we inducting a program, or are we kind of making up as we go along? Are we facilitating cadet development? Can we do it better? I don't know. That's for you to answer, not me. The program element of what we do and the review process. Have we got a review process involved on that? Okay. So, and that's really key. We've got that review process. If we look at the columns, you'll note the question and the red, amber, green on the side. The other element, the other sort of column, if you like, the numbers and the specific activity guidance, checklist is another thing that's in those, is where you will find that element of guidance that is published that we must operate within. So if you have a question on where that is, or what it is that that's supposed to be doing, or what you need to do around that question, it does link you directly into. Whilst IBOS is a much bigger document than listed here, we do need to conform to all of it. The specific guidance relating to these questions is there, okay, which is really, really important. And as we go down, you'll see we've got, if my computer could speed up a bit, that would be great. You can see that we've got the assurance report page. And there's a couple of those listed on here for people if you want to make lots of notes. That's really cool. For the IBOS reference, the action to take, and the date set to do it by, basically date set, when it needs to be done by. Really important that we fill that sheet in, and then we can evidence it, and then we can just sign off and date it when it's done, and just say this was done, completed this date by, and then it shows that there's process of review has taken place. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a bit of an insight into the form. I'll just sort of go up slowly. Here, a lot of the questions, I think, to boating teams will be kind of, you'll be very aware of these. If we're not, and we want to know more, again, all I said is we are here to help. We're really keen for your questions to come to us, and for you to ask any questions you need to by on tonight, or whether you want to get in touch with me or the office. Absolutely fine. Your local boat station as well. Well, I say local, your nearest boat station. Some people haven't got one up the road necessarily, but if you want to get in touch with the guys there, they will be able to help you as well. They will be able to give you a lot of good advice, and they go through this process as well as Sea Cadet operational venues. Therefore, you will be able to. They are very familiar with this. So hopefully that gives you that insight. So I'm just going to pop out of this screen again and go back to them, and we will be very shortly getting to your questions. So I know we have got some coming. So absolutely, we will get those. We will answer those. Links to higher level assurance. So this was the link to where this fits in the grand scheme of things. So firstly, it's best practice associated with general safety of operation. So it is really important that we have these processes in place, and we can evidence it, and we do have a standardized format with which we can do it as a wider organization, wider team of people delivering to many thousands of cadets. So it's really important we have this simple yet effective system. This links to the UMA. So the UMA is, as ever, under review. Is looked at how that we go about doing that. We're keen to make that a supportive, from a boating aspect, as supportive as possible, as opposed to ticking boxes. So we want to, we're suggesting that this should be part of the UMA. So they will ask to see your last level 1 assurance check sheet, last assurance report sheet, to enable them to get an overview of the review processes and the actions taken to improve delivery or maintain good standards of delivery at a venue. So hopefully they'll be delving into this to have a look at your boating. Because obviously not all of our operations team, and a lot of them have got great knowledge around boating, not all of them are. So actually it gives them a good view, good view of your processes as they go through your UMA to ensure that the boxes are ticked, and they can recognize the good practice that you're delivering. External assurance we have mentioned, so RYA, some venues, ALA, there are a few external assurance processes, and there are places on military establishments, or there are places on educational establishments who have a requirement to demonstrate process to their landlords, or if they're a tenant, or the site that they're on. So it all forms part of that process. Okay. It forms that external assurance. Okay, and what this is essentially, we've said it a few times, but it's evidencing that process and showing good practice of development. What's really important is that we are able to show this. So this is what we call one loader. So this is a very mod term, which is first line of defense against of safety, against accidents and health and safety in general. Which is us checking ourselves, making sure that we are within what we're supposed to be doing. Second is someone from outside of your venue coming into that venue and looking at. So that's things like the UMA, and what have you. Then we have level 3, which you know in our world is an NSO and Inshore boating team popping in and just you know casting eye, just offer advice and making sure that we're all on the same level, because obviously we all understand things differently. So it's making sure that we've all got it as intended. And that's level 3. And then level 4 are people like the RYA that are external from the organisation coming in to review. So it fits into each step of that process and provides evidence for each step of that process. So that is it links to a much wider scale. And this is quite standard practice now throughout water sports particularly, but many other activity providers, activity industries, and industry in general. They are having to provide reports on how they do that. Now, some places have epically long bits of streams of paperwork that do this. We've tried to condense this into filler forming, and you should be able to pick the actions out of that. Obviously, as you go through this, and if people find it difficult or have feedback on it, you know, we welcome that with open arms. To have a chat through and find out what it is that is either difficult about it or not doing the right thing for you. We want it to be a useful tool to you. So really keen for you to feedback on the use of this form as we move forward. There is no escaping. We need to use some process to do this, but this is where we are, and we are keen to move this forward in a way that works best for you. So hopefully that all makes sense to you. So I'm going to draft in Nicola to have a run through the Q&A at the moment. If you want to shout some questions
yes.
out.
Yeah. So we've got some open on the Q&A. So someone's asked, which charity is liable? Is it the local subsidiary or MSSC?
At what is the key? So at what level? So non-compliance to IBOS, it is the local charity. You must comply to all MSSC operational standards in order to qualify for compliance. And if you are compliant with that, then MSSC is liable, and it falls under the mod indemnity and insurances of the MSSC that provide that. If you are not compliant with those elements, those are the things signed off for those things, and you must operate within those operating standards. And they're not checked; they require you to apply them locally. But as long as you do apply them locally, then you are compliant. And you know, if the operating standard is wrong, then the operating standard is wrong. That sits certainly at the national charity. However, non-compliance at a local level sits with the level that is non-compliant. I hope that answers the question. But please, if you need more information on that, please do give me a call.
Someone has brought up about the Westminster assets and asked, do instructors' own craft or paddleboard need to be registered on Westminster to be covered by the indemnity?
Yes, they do. So if you use any craft in the delivery of Sea Cadet activity internally, then yes, it needs to be listed, because if it's not listed on Westminster, it isn't covered for any damage that may occur to it. So if someone parks their boat, you know, whilst learning into it, it's great that they're willing to bring equipment in and do that. That's fantastic. But please list it on Westminster, because it's really important that it's insured through that. We can't add it latterly, and if it's not there, it doesn't exist. So it's not there on our insurance policies. So it needs to be listed. If it's a third-party provider whose craft you're using, they do not need to be listed on Westminster. So if it's a third-party provider, so it's an external coach bringing in kit, you're paying them to deliver a thing as an external provider, or by arrangement, whether that is. That is up to them to insure their equipment for their use. Or if we go to, for example, an outdoor centre to do some kayaking, they will deal with it. Third-party provision is provided by the third party. It's you know, buy it off the shelf type thing. But anything we provide to our cadets, we must ensure is listed correctly on Westminster. Hopefully that
a couple of people asking about, when it says about venue, do you mean the unit or the place that they're boating from? Or
so
both?
the venue is both. So the venue, so for example, is if we were to take let's pick a boat station. Midlands is a hot topic at the moment because that's soon to open. So if we take Midlands boat station, now they go off and they do stuff on the lake and they go off elsewhere. But that is the venue operation. So the venue is the link in. Okay, so that is the umbrella under which everything happens. You will have your boating location and your unit location, maybe two different places, but they are one venue. If that makes sense. So it's whatever happens under the name of that unit is the venue.
No problem. Sorry, there's quite a lot just coming through now.
No problem. We've got a bit of time.
Some people are asking about having a printed copy of IBOS and whether they have to have a printed copy in the unit and what they do then with this assurance, whether they file it or send it to us.
So, okay, so first off, around the printed copy versus electronic copy. Now, depending on who you've spoken to probably recently, you've probably had several different answers. So the word from the horse's mouth for me is it needs to do a certain thing. So it needs to be available for your instructors to refer to both the national guidance and it needs to be available, your site-specific instructions need to be available for your instructors to reference during their boating operations. So not necessarily in the powerboat, but at the boating location, it needs to be accessible. If that's on a computer or a tablet or something like that that will work there and is definitely charged up and is accessible, then it can be electronic. There's no reason why it can't be electronic. If you need a printed copy down there and everything else element of it is electronic, so the sign-off sheets, the update sheets, this, for example, that can all be electronic, but it must be securely stored and not lost. So it must be under the unit storage, not personal storage, which is really key. So it needs to be the venue's documents that lives with the venue, not necessarily an individual on their personal account. If that makes it, it needs to be part of the unit's own thing. In terms of who has this sheet, now this sheet is there for you. Okay, so it's for you to store and you to fill out. It will then be part of your documentation that you can then show, and it's part of instructor certificates. They go on Westminster, we can check that, but it's up to the venue to put it onto Westminster. And it's all these things it's for the unit, but it is then it's showable and demonstrable externally. So we don't need it sent to us, but any visit, anything like that, or anything we spot when it comes up, we will look into are we doing the self-assurance check. The UMA part of the local visits and what have you will, from area and what have you, will look for this to be in place, to make sure that there is a solid review process and actions are being taken to move forwards and comply. As even if guidance changes or a standards and expectation comes out, well, the implementation of that might require an action on the venue self-audit. It might not be quite implemented, or it might just come out, or the document might be sparked by a guidance change. So those elements would be included in that report. So they'd be looking for things like
that. Someone has asked, so if we share the use of a CCF boat with another unit, does it need to be recorded on both units' Westminsters?
No, but you should have a fleet user agreement in place. So you should either, if you share it, then there's the shared fleet agreement. So if you are using their boat, you should sign a document and have a copy of it to say that they've agreed that you can use it. And if that's the case, it sits with it. You can't insure a boat twice. So it will sit on their insurance, but they've let you use it. So that means it's on them. And likewise, if you lend your boats out to anyone, then you should have a shared fleet agreement in place, or fleet user agreement in place. If we are loaning it, so we are taking custody of it temporarily, if that is with another Sea Cadet unit, well, actually we should fill out a loan form. Again, all these are available on the component section of IBOS or operating standard on the TNA. We don't need to re-enter it, but what we do need, if it's a Sea Cadet boat, you can actually just put a note in the notes section of it, saying this is on loan too. If it's your boat, on loan. If it's not your boat, well, technically it's the loaning venue to do the paperwork, but you probably want to make sure that's in place so you don't get lumbered with a bill. It's just about making sure that paperwork, we don't need to re-enter it as a whole extra element of equipment.
Off the back of that, how does the cooperative fleet agreement work for district-owned boats used by units in their districts?
Okay, so probably going to cause a point of contention here. However, the owner is currently, if it's listed as district, that is by definition MSSC. So there is the idea at the moment. The idea is all equipment should be pushed down to districts do maintain a pocket of equipment, which is fantastic because they can pop in for emergency things like that. If it is district owned, then it has a Westminster. It already has a Westminster asset code against it, so it has a I don't know what you call it, file on Westminster. What should happen is the district officer who is responsible for that element of equipment should follow exactly the process I've just mentioned in terms of loan form, noting it on Westminster, things like that. So if you haven't got that in place, I would strongly suggest you raise that with your district team, because the district boats are by definition MSSC. So that's the same as if you had a boat station boat on loan, an area boat, or one of Inshore Boating's boats. We'd make sure that paperwork should be in place. It's the same. RGA kit's different because that's gift agreements, that's funding and things like that. But if it's on loan from a place that's already there, it should have that same process.
There's another one. So someone's been told that if they use a third party to assist with training, they have to use the MOD provided buoyancies to cover the cadets and also have a Westminster course created as they've organised it through the cadets. Is that correct?
There's a lot of caveats on that, a lot of caveats. So if you are using a third party, the word third party, what that means is that you are, buying it off the shelf from someone. So if you are basically paying someone to deliver and it's on their insurance, the third parties, you're using their insurance. So it's no different to going to a water park for the day and using the slides. Well, actually, you pay them the money, and then it's on them. We just need to do our due diligence to make sure that they have got systems and it's safe to use it. And the people, the lifeguards are lifeguards, for example, plastic models. So we do our due diligence on that, and that's what a third party is. So if they are a third party provider, then they are need to be authorised by area, and B need to have the correct insurances and things like that in place. When it comes to buoyancy aids, if it's a third party provider, then it's whatever buoyancy aids they've got. So if I was to take a group of cadets from a unit to say Andrew Simpson, Rockley, an outdoor centre, and we went on the water, we'd use their equipment because that's under their policies, their check sheets and their insurance systems. We wouldn't require our own. We could take our own, and as long as they said it's fine, well, it's still fall under their insurance system because they've checked and they've said it's fine. If you are delivering to cadets, so if it is a cadet delivered course or activity delivered to cadets from within cadets, so by cadets, if that makes any sense, we need to conform to IBOS, so it needs to be IBOS compliant. Now, if you read IBOS, what it states is MOD life jackets must be used where appropriate to do so and where required. However, MOD buoyancy aids are the preferred option. However, they are not the option. So you are able to use external life jackets, or sorry, external buoyancy aids. I should correct myself there, to complement that as well. So we very much encourage you to use life jackets provided by stores, life jackets and buoyancy aids provided by stores. But there are cases where it would be appropriate maybe to buy off-the-shelf life jackets, providing they conform to the same checking system, the same standards, and the same requirements of the MOD buoyancy aids. Then that is okay. That is okay. But sounds quite. There's a few caveats to this. So can I ask whoever asked that question to just perhaps drop us an email with a phone number and a suitable time to call, and I will happily find time and to chat things through on that one, because I think there might be a couple of. I might not quite have the right picture in my mind of what's going on. So I'd like to dive into that a little deeper so I give you the correct advice.
I think we're going to leave it there. There's a couple more questions, but they would be more appropriate for some personal responses, not
okay, fine.
The webinar. So we'll leave it there, I think, and we will get back to everyone that has asked something or suggested a few things.
No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So, from that, what I'll say is thank you very much, everyone, for your time tonight. Really appreciate you giving up your time. Hopefully, you found it useful and it wasn't too draining. But yeah, an important part of insurance. Very useful assurance process, but it can be complicated. So do reach out if you need any help. But for myself and Nicola, thank you very much for your time and good night.
Thank you, everyone.